guys, how's it going? It's Al. Welcome to the week 6 DraftKings lineup builder show. We're gonna have to do it differently than we typically do. Usually every Friday I spend about 45 minutes to an hour taking questions and answering them to the best of my ability with our Twitch chat. However, this week things kind of went sideways. When I went live, we were about to start the show, and my upload speeds from Spectrum went from 40 to like 4. So it's impossible for me to do the show live with the Twitch chat. We have them in Discord asking questions. I'm going to answer as many of their questions as I possibly can. So a little different feel to this show as I'm on my own, as opposed to having chat be a part of it. So I'm going to answer their cash game questions, their tournament questions. We'll go over a cash game core. We'll figure out the quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. We'll build a Underdog fantasy pick'em card for you as well. We'll go through the entire thing that we always do. So also, the cheat sheet comes out by the time this is on YouTube. So if you wanted to get the cheat sheet, you got to join the Discord, smizzle.tv/Discord. You have to be a channel member here on YouTube or a Twitch subscriber. That's $5 a month. You can go to smizzle.tv/join if you don't see a join button right down below. And then you go to the instructions folder in our Discord and follow the instructions. There's even a video to help you to link your Discord to the site that you have subscribed on. And within the hour, your name will turn red or blue, depending on where you subscribed, and you will get access to the Week 6 DraftKings cheat sheet. So thank you guys for being here. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notifications bell, and let's go.
He's a legend.
The Smiz Gang Listener League is posted. It is not a game you can find in the DraftKings lobby. You have to go through my link at smizzle.tv/links. That will take you to the link tree, and you can see right here, Smiz Gang Listener League. You can also join the Discord. You can find my Instagram. You can find the Twitch stream. We're live a bunch of days out of the week. My Twitter, main channel, YouTube channel, the Fantasy Football channel, where I shout out the top 10 finishers in the Listener League every single Monday on the recap video. You can see that like right here. See, here's the Al Smizzle Fantasy Football channel. Rainmakers preview, week 5 recap. I go over my cash game lineup, my tournament lineups. You see exactly what my results were every week, and we shout out the winners of the Listener League. $10 for the entry fee, 3 max, $45,000 in the prize pool, 10% to first. 10% of first goes to 10th. Really balanced, flat payout arc, and absolutely no rake. The best tournament that is out there on DraftKings. So make sure that you get in it. It has filled the last 2 days by Saturday evening here on the West Coast. So get in now before anything else kind of happens. Let me look in Discord and find a couple of questions here. One, somebody asked, is Stafford better for cash or for GPPs this week? He's torn. So I think quarterback is a whatever you want to do week in cash. There's no one way to go about it. I think that Stafford's going to pop in projections, but no quarterback is standing out as a must-play guy, whether it's because of salary or because of their rushing ability or people who are underpriced. It looks to me like, based on projections, matchups, prices, that the prices on DraftKings this week are just pretty efficient. There's nothing that's out of the ordinary. Stafford is 6,100, which is fine. We're not just looking for a 3x multiplier. I know that that's been the old school way of thinking when it comes to cash, because if you score 150 points, you are more than probably going to win in cash games. But different positions have different sort of expectations, and you have to have kind of a sliding scale, because if you have a player who's 9K, do they have to score you 27 points? What if they score 24? Is that bad? What about a guy who has 3K or 3,500? What if they get 8.5 points? Is that bad that they didn't get all the way there? Do they kill you if they only get 2x and they get you 6 points? No, it doesn't work that way. So you have to have kind of a different way to look at it. So quarterbacks, I'm looking for the ability to get me 20 plus if they're in cash. Probability of 25 or more, which is why I skew usually to the mid-range players in cash who have the ability to help with their legs. We did get a little piece of news. One, Deshaun Watson is out this weekend off the main slate. Daniel Jones also out, but that's not on the main slate, so you don't have to worry about that. They were going to get clobbered probably by San Francisco anyway, and now they've got a situation where they're not going to play the rookie DTR. His name doesn't even fit. He played poorly last week. Now they're going with PJ Walker, XFL graduate PJ Walker. And I don't know. San Francisco's just been dominant. They project to be playing from behind. Yes, Cleveland has an extremely good defense at everything. They are a fantastic job. They play a lot of man-to-man coverage. They blitz a lot. Their cornerbacks, a lot of pressure put on them, but they do fantastically. They don't allow a lot to the run. They don't allow a lot through the air. Just a very good defense. But like that offense could put them in a lot of short field defensive situations, which could lead to, them doing a whole lot. Like I've seen Fields as a cash game quarterback, which I think is just fine. Minnesota's been a team that lends itself to high scoring games pretty much a lot. And Fields has been feasting. This part of the Bears schedule as advertised, I believe in week 3, I did my buy sell short, and my thing on that video was you need to be buying Justin Fields in your season long leagues right now, because they have this stretch coming where they play like 2 good defenses in the next 8 weeks, and everything else is just a carnival. Minnesota, the game against Washington, Denver couldn't stop anybody. Then they get the Chargers. Like, it's just a really beautiful schedule for Justin Fields, and he could be an 8K quarterback by the time it's all over, which is kind of where they kind of started him. 7,700, 7,600. You're still getting a little bit of a bargain off of that. The last 2 weeks were the ultimate bargain. Running the ball expectation of about 8 times a game, so you get that floor. He's thrown 4 touchdowns each of the last 2 weeks. Last week, 4 touchdowns on 15 passes. That's not sustainable. That's just not sustainable moving forward. But the other stuff certainly is. So I think that we can get ourselves in a position with him. And if you're going to pay up, also Kirk Cousins, fine. Now, I know he doesn't have JJ, so the ceiling might not be there, but this is still an offense that's going to move the ball through the air. The absence of JJ has opened up a lot of value elsewhere. We'll get to that in just a bit, because we're focusing on cash game quarterbacks. AR-15 is out, which I think opens up, if you wanted to save more money, somebody like Gardner Minshew, who does project to score over 15 points this week, has the possibility of scoring over 20. Capable wide receivers for him to throw to. It's efficiency, not volume, that leads to that quarterback scoring in fantasy, right? You saw that when I just flashed Fields up there, right? He doesn't need to throw 50 passes. Volume of pass attempts does not necessarily add to quarterback scoring. It helps in PPR for the pass catchers. It helps for yardage, but efficiency, specifically being measured through touchdown passes, is what helps. And he does have a guy who's a value in Josh Downs. He does have Pittman, who's very strong, capable pass catching tight ends, and 2 running backs who do well in the passing game with Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss, depending on what their share is. I kind of think it's going to be like a 50-50 share myself. I think that's kind of where they're going to go. So if you wanted to save all the way up, you can go down there and feel fine. But right now, I think it's Stafford for the cash game quarterback with the matchup against Arizona. But like I said, I wouldn't say that he's such an optimal play that you can't come down if you wanted to pay up more to go to somebody like Minshew, or if you had extra salary because you got all the other guys that you want, to be able to pay up for one of the more expensive guys here in the 7K range. Probably not going to pay all the way up for 8,200 for Hurts. There is value, but like Fields and Cousins are also fine in that range. Lawrence is fine against Indy at 6,500. All the quarterbacks this week are fine. Burrow in a good matchup against Cincinnati. Like, they're all against Seattle. They're all fine. There's no quarterback that's extending themselves. At running back, a lot of running backs in play this week. Like an awful lot of running backs. Like a whole lot of running backs are in play this week. But the one that I think stands out the most, or the ones I think stand out the most, are in this range. Travis Etienne at 7,100, coming off of the volume that he came off against Indy. Really solid play, getting 23 opportunities in week 4, 24 opportunities in week 3. A massive week in their second game against Buffalo, where they were playing from ahead and fed him even more. The most promising, I guess, the most encouraging thing about his box scores right now is the amount of targets that he was getting last year. 1 and 2 targets a game this year, alternating 5-3, 5-3 from week to week to week. 31 opportunities for him last week in London. If you came down a little bit, right in the same range with him, David Montgomery, he's just going to get a ton of volume. And we saw with Gibbs out, he gets even more volume in the passing game. 1 yard away from a 30-point day last week as Uber Chalk. His role on the Lions is extremely secure in that offense. Tampa Bay, though, I think is a better defense, specifically against the run that people are giving him credit for, which leads me down to this range with these 2 guys in particular. Kyren Williams, high volume back, going to get you 20 opportunities, specifically at home in a game that they project to play from ahead, as opposed to last week where they played from behind Philadelphia at 6,500. Joe Mixon at 6,300. Again, 29 opportunities last week at home, favored 5-box guy. But Raheem Mostert against Carolina, an extremely leaky defense against running backs without Devon Achane. Yes, there's going to be other running backs in play, whether it's Salvon Ahmed or whether they activate Jeff Wilson Jr. off of IR to have him play this week. It has not happened yet by the time that this show is airing, or being recorded. But like, he's done more with less. He's going to get you 15 to 20 opportunities at a minimum, with the big playability that already he has in his own locker, coupled with the fact that he's going to run against light boxes because of Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill on the outside, and how good their coach is at putting them in positions to succeed. I think that Raheem Mostert is the best running back play when it comes to cash games. At wide receiver, if you're going to pay up, I think once again it's Jamar Chase. Funnel defense, pass funnel defense. Higgins right now up in the air. If Higgins is out, he could see a little bit more. Like 19 is absurd, right? This was the squeaky wheel game. I could see him coming down to 11 or 12 targets, even if Higgins is out. But when Higgins is in, he still gets between 8 and 12 targets a game. 8,300, not too much to pay for Jamar Chase at home in a fantastic matchup. There's plenty of value plays as well. I mentioned Minnesota, which is where the easiest path to value is, specifically against Chicago, who has just been bad in all facets. One, KJ Osborne, 4,400, stepping into the X role for JJ. He's the one who's going to have the role change, right? Addison's going to play his same role, and he's at 5,700. He's going to play the same role he's played all year, running a ton of routes, playing a ton of snaps. He's going to be the downfield guy. I'm not saying that Osborne is going to do the same things that JJ is going to do. He's clearly not the same receiver, not the same route runner, does not get the same separation, but 4,400, clearly an easy way to go for value. And then we have Brandon Powell, who stepped into 6 targets last week once JJ went out, played no snaps, ran no routes, now running routes and playing snaps. And they don't go very deep. They play their 3 wide receivers, and they play Hawkinson. They throw the ball to Madison out of the backfield a little bit, but Brandon Powell should see a massive increase and a role change for him, stepping into that slot role as the next man up on a most down basis in this Minnesota offense. If you want extreme value, you can go down to him. I don't know that you need to. And at tight end, we're looking in probably, like, Laporta is now questionable, right? He returned to practice Friday. He's fine at the price, but I don't think he's necessary this week with the guys that we have down here in the 3K-ish range. The Rams have been inefficient against tight ends. You could go that route if you want, right? Nobody likes playing Zach Ertz, but he's getting so many targets that he's such an easy click in cash. If you don't think that the upside is there to play him in tournaments, that's just fine. But cash and tournaments have to be looked at through a different lens. In your cash game, you want high volume, you want a solid floor, you want access to a reasonable ceiling, but don't need that tournament winning or week winning ceiling with every spot on your roster, which is why Wan'Dale Robinson last week was a fine cash game play, because we knew what his role was, we knew what he was going to do, we knew what his floor was, but he didn't have access to a ceiling, so we tried to underweight him in tournaments. Zach Ertz seems to be the best in this range. There are other players in that range as well, with Schultz, Pitts, Jonnu Smith, who's gotten a tremendous amount of volume, 7, 6, 8, 6 targets the last 4 weeks. He doesn't have the upside of a Kyle Pitts, who got 11 targets last week, but 4, 9, 5. Like, the way that they deploy him, the way that they utilize him, not as good a floor, but it's clearly a better ceiling than Jonnu. Cade Otton in a good matchup against Detroit. Detroit really good on defense, but they funnel the ball to tight ends. They try to give up the least thing, right? They're not going to give up on the outside, and they're not going to let you run the football. They are going to pressure you, so the tight end does get peppered a lot. And Dalton Schultz against New Orleans, another team very good on defense. High volume tight end with touchdown upside, scored 1 each of the last 2 weeks, 3,600, just like Zach Ertz. So there's the cash game core that I think chat would mostly be on. I'm going to go to Discord. I'm going to take a few questions. I tried to have everybody. I love Fields more, Komet stack. Are you crazy? No, I don't think you're crazy at all, Highlander John. I think that that's just fine, right? I think it's a perfect stack. I think that you can get there, and I think that the public feel is that you can't stack a guy like Fields. You can't stack a running quarterback like Hurts. And it's just flat out wrong. Of course you can stack guys like that. In fact, if you're playing for, like you should be playing for, the 30-point DraftKings day, which is the way that you should be attacking when it comes to, tournaments. You're not playing for an 18, 19, 20 point day. Can you trust this guy? Tournaments aren't about trust. Do you think that he could sustain 2 wide receivers? I don't care about sustain. I care about this 1 week, the most small of samples, right? Tournaments are 1 week, 1 game, 1 slate, the ultimate in small sample size theater. So if we want to isolate Justin Fields in that small sample size, the weeks that he has 16 fantasy points, you aren't winning a tournament. The weeks that he has 11 fantasy points, you aren't winning a tournament. Whether you double stack him, single stack him, or run him naked, it does not matter when he doesn't score 30. But when he scores 30 fantasy points, he's going to contribute with his legs. 11 rushes, 57 yards. He completes 15 passes this week, completed 28 passes this week. This week, they just throttled Washington. They lost to Denver after getting up 28 to like 6 or 28 to 3. And like both weeks, 4 touchdown passes. Let's take a look at his pass catchers. Well, can he sustain 2 guys? Of course he can sustain 2 guys in that specific isolated scenario. 5 catches, 42 and a touchdown, 15 points from your tight end. Seems pretty good. 27.6 points from your tight end. Seems pretty good. Looking at his wide receivers, DJ Moore with a 50-point day, 52 against Washington, 30 against Denver, which I did not see coming considering how good Patrick Surtain Jr. is. And the ball ain't going to a whole lot of places. Mooney's getting very limited targets. Equanimous, questionable this week, very limited targets. Velus Jones not getting a whole lot of targets. Like, they're just not. So if you're going to double stack him, you know where those double stacks are coming through. You know where the targets are going. And it's extremely viable to put him as a double stacked quarterback. And you should, because all we're playing is for that 30-point day. What indicators do you use to choose who to bring back in a stack? I'm looking for volume. I'm looking for touchdown upside. I'm looking for sometimes leverage, right? And it's a great way. Obviously, we want to stay at a lower percentage. My number that I tend to stay under is typically something like 130 total, but I also try to work in a couple of guys that are under 10%. And double stack bring back, quarterback with 2 players on pass catchers on his own team and a bring back player from the other side, allows us to get different. Because let's take a team like Miami, right? So if I was to look at Miami in terms of what their percentage owned players are going to be, right now, quarterbacks never carry a really high percentage, and I don't think there's going to be many quarterbacks, if not like more than 2, who are over 10%. It's going to be really spread out this week in tournaments. But if you isolate to their pass catchers, who do you want to stack with Tua? Every one of you just out loud on YouTube said Tyreek Hill. So everybody's going to want to, if they're going to tack through that and they're going to stack their quarterback, it's going to be with Tyreek Hill if they're going to play Tua. He is currently projected somewhere around, 12, 15, 16%. I could see him being 15% very easily when it comes to the weekend, right? Somewhere in that mid-teens range, 13, 14, 17, 15, somewhere in there. But let's take a look at the other side. Who are his other pass catchers? Who else can he throw the ball to? Braxton Berrios, under 1%. Jalen Waddle, under 2%. Ced Wilson Jr., minimum salary. Nobody's playing him. His tight end, Smythe, nobody's playing him. So it allows you leverage off of that Raheem Mostert play that gets you differentiated in your double stack. And then bringing that back, who's on the other side of that? Carolina side. You got a high volume pass game running back, and you've got Adam Thielen, who's been really solid, and a super cheap 3,500 or so rookie in Mingo, who has seen an awful lot of targets recently. So again, very easy to spot who the bringbacks should be and to use it to differentiate your lineup. One, in total combination of stack and cumulative ownership, as well as product ownership for that stack. So easy ways to get different through that. Let me look for a couple of others. Somebody said, I know it's pukey, but it may be worthy to put who? Ritter and London stack in cash. Don't do that. No, do not. Cash games are different. If you want to play a Ritter stack in tournaments, go for it, right? Ritter can have a 30-point fantasy day. We saw him do really well last week, randomly. So, like, if you want to play that in a tournament where floor doesn't really matter, go for it. When we're playing cash games, we're not just looking at floor. 29-point fantasy day here, 9 point, 7 point, 8 point. Desmond Ritter is bad. And when I say he's bad, I mean he's highly inaccurate. He's bad in real life. He's bad for fantasy. And the reason he's bad for fantasy is partially because of that inaccuracy, partially because they have a team that desires to run the football 45 times a game. And that's not something that we want to target in cash games. You want a guy, if I'm going to play a $5,000 quarterback, it's not going to be a guy who yo-yos this much, and we know their team, if they get up 3 points, they're going to go super run heavy. They're not going to utilize or deploy guys like London or Pitts in the right way that is commiserate with their athleticism or anything else. So not really a route that I want to go. If I'm playing a 5K quarterback, I know that they're bad defensively, but Minshew is done just fine and has plenty of weapons around him. I don't know why I'm getting a circly wheel, but I'm getting a circly wheel to open. I can't open up Minshew's player page. It is what it is. So let's go over to, while we're here, let's go over to Underdog Fantasy and let's build a pick'em card for this weekend. We have a couple of specials on the board. And if you don't have your free $100 deposit bonus settled yet on Underdog Fantasy, go get it. Use promo code ALSMIZZLE, ALSMIZZLE, all one word. For your first deposit to the site, you get up to $100 free deposit bonus. Up to $100. You put in $100, you deposit $100, you get $100 put into your account that you can use on something like this for pick'em. They have the special here, Jamar Chase over 0.5 total yards. I'm going to go with that one. Limits me to a $20 max bet on this. We got Jamar Chase over. Give me Brandon Ayuk over 46.5. Adam Thielen over 5.5 receptions. And Raheem Mostert over 85.5 plus rushing and receiving yards. I'll accept that one because they just changed that one. We'll click submit. We'll confirm that one. Boom. There's my card for the weekend. Unders are sharper. I play overs because I like watching good football. I don't want to watch punts and field goals. So like that's how I kind of attack these, and it's fun and it's what I like to do. Best of luck to you on your pick'em cards this weekend. Who do we like as pivots off the Mostert chalk in GPP? Can't see the person's name. It says personally like Walker and Kamara seem like good options. They do. There's a lot of running backs on the board. This is a not a tough week at running back, but you remember how last week was where there was a bunch of guys? If you haven't seen the 5-box running back graphic, go check that out. There's 5-6 of them this week. Travis Etienne at 7,100, Raheem Mostert at 64. You've got DeAndre Swift at 6,100, who's extremely good. David Montgomery against Tampa Bay. I don't love the matchup against Tampa Bay, but I love the volume that Montgomery's getting. Kyron Williams, 65. Madison at 56 is going to go under-owned against the Bears defense, who's really bad. Josh Jacobs against New England at home and favored. Lots of running backs on the board this week. Lots of them. And all of them can't carry massive ownership. But like right now, looking at the aggregated, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 running backs projected over 20%. That tells you how many running backs really have a fantastic advantage situation. 1, on the field, matchup wise. 2, in terms of their salary and points per dollar projections. So looking at both of those things puts us in a spot where we know we're going to have guys that are going to be in these ridiculous positions that everybody's going to want to play them. So I don't think you have to worry about that. I don't think you I'm not ever fading one player in GPP. Well, he's 30%, so I can't play him. That's false. You just got to find a different way to get different somewhere else in your lineup. It's just not going to be plug this guy in and, or fade him. And then obviously I just win money. Chalk has the tendency to do chalk things from time to time. What you're hoping for is that a guy like Raheem Mostert has like 16 or 18 points. If you're going to fade him, that he just 2X's or 3X's, because in a tournament, you've got to have 2 touchdown guys. You've got to have 25 plus fantasy points, 30 plus fantasy points from all of your guys. What you're avoiding is him going nuclear and having chalk completely attack you. But there's so many spots that you can play this week. There's so many spots that you could go to. McCaffrey, if you wanted to pay up to be different, 2,200 more than the next active running back with David Montgomery. You could pay up to be different, in my opinion, with Bijan Robinson at 7,200 against Washington. ETN, a 5-box running back this week at home. Plenty of running backs at a lot of different price points. Same thing on the opposite side. Brian Robinson Jr. at 5,700, although Atlanta's defense against running backs has been solid. Alexander Madison, there we go. Alexander Madison, 5,600. Now look, playing against Kansas City's super boring, by the way. I haven't said that since 2015. They've been must-see TV. The Kansas City Chiefs for the last 7-8 years have essentially been peak Golden State Warriors, Steph Golden State Warriors, where like if they're on, I want to watch them because it's going to be fun. Right now, it's not fun to watch the Chiefs. And it's not fun because they gotten really good on defense. They have not played any good teams that are going to push them. And so they play a really boring style of football, which is shocking to say through the first 5-6 weeks of this season. I'm not pleased with it. I want it to change. The schedule's going to get tougher for them in the next few weeks. So like we'll see what they can do. And it's not because of the wide receivers, because he had this same cast of wide receivers last year, and they added Rashee Rice, who looks like he's going to be the real deal. But I digress. Alex Madison, aren't you worried about bros completely in shambles? Was specifically this game against Carolina. Aren't you worried about Cam Akers? No, he still had 18 opportunities, ran for 5.6 per carry. They played against Kansas City, who one, got the lead, two, is a much better defense than people expect, and now he gets Chicago, who's been a terrible defense so far this year, very leaky against opposing running backs, one of the top 3 in the league in running backs points against on DraftKings. And so this was a good matchup game. 4.7 per carry, 7 catches. Carolina, good matchup game, just hasn't scored touchdowns. Just hasn't gotten the touchdowns. Got one through the air last week against KC, got one back in week 1 against Tampa Bay. Tough defense for running backs. Philadelphia, Tampa Bay, tough defense for running backs. Kansas City, softer defenses. Look what he does. He's a schoolyard bully at this point at 5,600, and people aren't going to play him, especially with 11 or 12 vacated targets per game. They're going to have to lean on everybody else. 12 targets aren't going to go to one guy. Those offensive play calls aren't going to go to one guy in the offense in the absence of JJ. JJ makes the entire offense better. He lifts everybody else around him. But like Madison's going to get his volume. And then we have a situation. We have 2 situations for injury. One that I don't have an answer for you and we have to monitor. That one is Arizona. James Conner goes to IR. Okay. So that opens up a lot of snaps and a lot of touches and a lot of usage in the passing game for a running back. Last week, Amari DiMarcado stepped in. He had been the part-time guy behind Conner, stepped into a 13 opportunity role once Conner left that game. However, they released their depth chart. He's 4,900. They released their depth chart, and Keontae Ingram, who has been dealing with a neck injury and only practiced in a limited fashion on Thursday, right now is listed ahead of DiMarcado on the depth chart. Wait and see. I don't have an answer for you by the time, at the time that I'm recording this show. This is a wait and see and then pivot moment. Both are sub 5K. Both are really strong volume plays if you need a release valve. And on the other side, the one that everybody wants to talk about is the Chicago Bears. Khalil Herbert going to miss this game. Roschon Johnson, at the last check, and we'll see if this has been updated, it is not, was a non-participant in practice on Wednesday and Thursday with lingering concussion syndromes, as he has not cleared concussion protocol as of yet. If he does clear concussion protocol, there is an A and a B scenario. And you have to decide for yourself right now, because we don't have answers, which scenario is more likely. We talked about this on the Top Stack video yesterday. The NFL is a next man up league. The NFL also is a league that would prefer to change one player's role as opposed to changing 2 players' roles. So typically what happens is you'll see player A gets injured. Let's say he's an outside wide receiver. Player B runs a lot of routes from the slot, but is typically, let's say, a starter caliber player who plays starters amount of snaps and runs starters amount of routes per game, but he is a slot guy. They are more likely to insert a player who was not being played into that X role on the outside of the hash marks and leave the slot guy in his job, as opposed to move the slot guy outside and then create a new job for another guy inside. We've seen this numerous times. If you remember last year, week 1, Greg Dortch was the guy that we were talking about was going to step into that slot role, as opposed to somebody else moving from the outside to the inside, like Rondale Moore, who had not played any inside snaps during the preseason. He was clearly an outside guy for them last year, so Dortch moved into the slot early in the season. A, Roschon Johnson clears protocol. A would be he just steps into the Khalil Herbert role and gets 20, 25 touches and is a volume monster. That also could be dependent on Deontay Foreman, because they don't have another halfback. These guys are fullbacks, basically being a healthy scratch like he has been for the last 4 games, right? That could happen, right? Roschon could take on a bigger role, but look what his role has been. This has been his role. He left this game early. with a concussion from that monster hit that he took against Washington. The one that kind of like flipped him and twisted him in the air. Clear that he was concussed on that one. 5 carries, 6 opportunities. 8 carries, 10 opportunities. 4 carries, 2 opportunities. 12 opportunities for the rookie. Everybody overreacted on waiver wire to this game. What if he clears protocol and stays in this role? What if he's the 40% guy? What if that's his job on the team and he is not a professional enough running back yet to be solid in pass pro for them to give him that expanded every down role? And they have a player on the roster who last year was an extremely efficient runner for Carolina and a professional who is solid in pass pro to step into step into that Khalil Herbert role and get the lion's share of the snaps, the lion's share of the touches, and just basically soak up all of this Khalil Herbert usage. Just cross off Khalil Herbert and put Deontay Foreman in this, and this is the opportunities that he would get. The primary running back, 55-60% of the snaps and touches in this Justin Fields offense. That's the A and the B. Either Roschon's going to get 20 plus, which they have not shown the desire to give him up to this point, and coming off of a concussion, maybe they would and maybe they wouldn't. Or B, Deontay Foreman at 4,400 becomes a 15 opportunity guy with conclusion in the passing game. Very good short yardage back, big, strong, bruising running back at 4,400 against Minnesota at home. Those are the A and B. Those are the 2 possibilities, in my opinion, for that running back situation. We don't have clarity. We may not have clarity on that situation. We probably will get some indication of who's going to be active and who's going to be inactive. Clearly, we'll know if Roschon clears protocol. But I'm just saying it's not a slam dunk that Roschon's going to be a 20-plus touch guy. And looking at projections currently, a lot of people have not adjusted for that just yet. It's like, well, he's the next guy. We're just going to give him all the volume. I don't think he's going to project to get all the volume. He may. It's a possibility. He may, but I'm not totally sure. Let me see if there's any other questions. 2v2 Madison and Cup or Walker and Puka. I'm assuming that that's for cash. So for cash, give me Madison and Cup. For tournament, Walker and Puka are both going to be underheld. So I like both of them for tournaments. What is the airspeed of an African swallow? I like that. Good reference. Very solid. And any word in DeMarcado versus Ingram, we already covered that. Cheat sheet still coming out. Cheat sheet's going to come out in just a little bit in the Discord. And that's all the questions that everybody kind of has for me over there. Top stacks included in that, 10 players, or sorry, under 10% players as well in that one. And I wish you guys the best of luck this week. And I'm sorry that the show was not the way that the show typically goes here on Friday, where I'm taking questions for a ton of time. But I hope that I got to some of the ones that you guys wanted answered. Make sure that you become a channel member and join our Discord, and look out for another video right there.
He's a legend.